Hey YouTube, this is Southern Prepper 1 and welcome to Boots on the Ground. If you have anything you could add, send it to Southern Prepper 1, Southern Prepper 1, the number 1 at yahoo.com. Please include in the title or the description, Boots on the Ground. Let's get right into it. President Biden on Thursday asked Congress to approve $20.6 billion in additional funding to Ukraine. And this is as the Ukrainian military is struggling even to do a minor counteroffensive against the Russian and their dug-in positions. He also asked for additional money for the relief efforts and some domestic funding projects. He wanted $13 billion for new military aid to Ukraine, and then also an additional $8.5 billion in additional economic, humanitarian, and security assistance for Ukraine. Hopefully, some of the $12 billion will be going to the Hawaii wildfire situation there. In total, he asked Congress to approve $40 billion in new spending. Money we do not have, money we will have to borrow and pay high rates of interest. If you've been keeping up with the bond market, every day they're ticking up, and the ticks are little. The ticks are just very small percentage of a point. But when you multiply that by trillions of dollars of new debt, it is astronomical. This lady wrote in, I believe it was a lady. I was outside working on my side garden, which does not have view of the front door to my house. This was late afternoon. My dog alerted to a stranger in the area when suddenly a young woman came around from the front of my house telling her name and asking for my sister by name. Just the first name. My sister does not live with me, but because I cautious, I just said the name who, what, and the woman proceeded to go back to the front door and attempt to open the front door. I followed her with one of my biggest dogs and told her that my sister does not live here. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't believe I tried to get into your house and she doesn't even live here. I called my sister, who does not know anyone by the name of that person, and so we thought it was a scam. They also said it was very odd. My security cameras were not working. When I went to my neighbors to warn them, half of the street cameras were not working either. We all have different security systems, so maybe it was an internet issue. I got lucky that my dogs were on the case, but she's saying now my gun was inside the house in the lockbox, but maybe it needs to be on my side when I go outside to work. Definitely always have it. It will do you no good in a lockbox. This is Smithfield Foods, and they're the world's largest pig and pork producer. They just announced they're going to close 35 Missouri farms. The reason they had to announce this because of the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act in that state. You have to give a 60-day notice if you're doing a large shutdown. This will affect 92 workers will be displaced. I don't have any reasons why this was shut down, but this is more additional food resources that are being taken off of the market. If you remember, we did one, I think, on Tyson. They're closing a bunch of places and laying off 1,700, I think that was the number. This person is from North Central Arkansas, and they said the Tyson cutting contracts with meat chicken growers. I work for a man who runs 8 houses, and it would be chicken houses. We were doing repairs and updates trying to meet the insane new airflow standard Tyson put out. He told me Tyson had cut his contract along with everyone else who had less than 2 years left on their contract. He had just spent more than $50,000 trying to meet their new standard, all for nothing. He said also he's seen over 37 similar operations nearby shut down the same way. So is there a coordinated effort to remove food production, food from the system? It's looking like there is. If it's caused by a government conspiracy, I don't know. Is it caused by just higher inflation and they just can't be profitable? This story says inflation hit 3.2% year over year in July from the 3% year over year in June. And so this is definitely an uptick. Inflation is turning into a referendum on housing costs, with the vast majority of increase coming from shelter, the sector perhaps most closely tied with the Federal Reserve interest rate hikes. The Feds have hiked interest rates 11 times since it started. Higher interest rates hit the financial dependent sector of the economy, and housing costs aren't the only one that remains stubbornly high. Car costs, soaring car insurance, and I've been hearing from a lot of people that said their insurance is going sky high. Car costs, repairs are going sky high. Also, nursing home and elderly care facilities are also bucking the trend of falling inflation. Prices for these services rose 2.4% in July and were up more than 5.6% for the year. There are some deflation in the markets if you remove volatile food and energy costs. This comes from someone about hospitals. Many U.S. hospitals are struggling to find chemotherapy drugs, antibiotics, and other life-saving treatment amid an escalating nationwide drug shortage crisis, as experts call for government action. About 1 in 3 hospitals say they're either skipped or delay prescribing medicine or prescribed less medicine just because of the shortages that are out there. They're saying the shortages are having a significant clinical impact. And this was a survey done by 1,100 hospitals and healthcare pharmacists from the U.S. And this was from NBC News. This person said, the company that provides my private mailbox service is shutting down that portion of their business. Reason is that the new government rules, regulations, and requirements are too costly in time and money. We travel for several months and use this service to collect our mail. The United States Postal Service will not hold mail for that long. Things just getting tighter and more restrictive. I hope you've seen this one. And this comes from Zero Hedge. Doctors are free to prescribe ivermectin to treat COVID-19, a lawyer representing the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, said this week. This involved a suit. Some doctors prescribing it got in trouble. So it looks like, because there was a few studies out there that indicated this might be helpful, that the government had no business telling doctors how to do their job. You've probably all seen the terrible fires that are in Hawaii. I think the death toll is up to 55, and it's going to climb higher, sad to say. A lot of people have had their whole lives wrecked. So pray for Hawaii, pray for the Maui area. Hopefully these people can find some peace. It's hard having everything you work for your whole life utterly destroyed and taken from you in just minutes. The National Bank of Poland increased its gold reserve for the 4th consecutive month in July as the country continues to aggressively stockpile the precious metals. And this is from Zero Hedge. According to the calculation, 72,000 ounces of gold were bought last month, valued about 1.4 million. This is more than any previous 3 months. So basically, Poland is realizing you have to have gold in the new upcoming economic collapse. So a lot of countries are starting to stockpile it, and they're stockpiling huge amounts of it. You've probably seen another explosion happened outside of Moscow. It was a huge explosion and a large fire. They haven't said the cause of it, but there's been increasingly more drone attacks and more attacks on Russia proper. They don't know why, but hopefully they'll determine. They did say there was a lot of drones that Ukraine sent over. And finally, speaking about Ukraine, Ukraine is going to lose. The Russians are actually moving their lines forward. They've done their own counterattack, and it will continue. The only thing hoping for Ukraine is to have a peace treaty immediately, or immediately fall back to areas that are defendable, with natural boundaries and natural barriers. Some of their barriers right now are not going to, handle Russia with their counterattack. So only time will tell, but just pray for peace in Ukraine. Thanks for watching.